Every story holds a spark of the human spirit. It's time to really let that light shine. This is Conjuring the Human Spirit, hosted by Sean McGuire Meeks, a space for honest conversations, deep connection, and the shared journey of being fully alive. This season, Sean also welcomes guests who open up about their own transformations and experiences, reminding us all what it means to heal, grow, and thrive, one story at a time. You're invited. Let's begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Conjuring the Human Spirit. My name is Sean McGuire Meeks, and I'm sitting here with Max Fernald.
Hi, guys.
I want to say he's a grown-ass man, and we're going to have a grown-ass conversation. I just say that because you look so young. And,
I do.
And I want to make sure that if I beat you up a little bit, that they know that I'm beating up a grown-ass man.
I'm grown.
And I'm so excited to have you here, Max.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
And, you know, we weren't really sure what we were going to talk about, were we?
No, not really.
And an article that was told to me by my dad and your Gramps, which is another story. I don't know if we're going to get into or not. But we're kind of related, right, Max?
Yeah, in a way. In a twisted way, we're related in some sense.
In a beautiful way. And my dad would call it ripples of love. Today we're going to talk about what it's like to be different. And it seems to be a topic in the news every day, particularly around certain issues. And my dad this morning pointed out this article, and I have it here in the Wall Street Journal, which is a more conservative national newspaper. And so I find it interesting that they want to talk about LGBTQ plus topics. And it was interesting that he brought it up, considering I was going to sit down with you, and I'm definitely a G, which is an LG, the gay, and you are
I'm the T.
You're the T.
Yep.
And what the article is talking about is this rift between the G, the LGB, and the T
Q. Yeah.
plus.
Yeah, the TQ.
And it's interesting, you know, as I was looking at the article, it was making me sad. But let me get ahead of myself. I really want to talk about what our intention in sitting down for to begin with is, which is really to be understood and to understand. Mm-hmm. For me to understand you a little better, and for you to understand me a little better. A grown 56-year-old man. And how old are you?
I'm 19.
Grown-ass man, 19.
Grown-ass man.
Yeah, that's right. And also for the listeners who aren't part of the LGBTQ plus community, who are kind of struggling with this idea of what it means. And I think we want to really help shine a light on it. I was telling Max earlier that I usually have a conversation with straight men who don't understand the G piece around this beautiful time I had out in Colorado at a hot springs called Valley View. And I was sitting in this hot springs overlooking the valley, and I was there all by myself sitting at the edge of the hot springs, and the most beautiful woman came to the edge of the hot springs in a robe, and she looked over at me, and I saw her. I couldn't believe how beautiful she was. And she was there. She was standing there looking at me. I couldn't believe it. She then took off her robe and got in the hot tub, the natural hot springs, and swam over to me and said, hi. And we ended up spending the rest of the day together, connecting in a beautiful way. But what I tell the straight guys is that beautiful woman was a guy. And it's interesting because I think that's what our intent is today, is to try to reach you, who's ever listening, in a place where you can have an understanding, a deeper understanding of what LGBTQ plus really is. And for me, that story helps the straight guy go, oh, and I was like, yeah, you know, all those feelings you were feeling inside around when you thought it was a woman standing there in a robe and she took the robe off and swam over, and all those swimmies that were happening on the inside. Well, that's what was happening for me. No different. Just the gender was different.
Right.
And so This is what we're going to attempt to do today. This article in the Wall Street Journal talks about a riff between LGB and
the TQ plus side, yeah.
Yeah. And so now I'll say again, it really makes me sad because I remember as a young gay man, when we were getting our rights, or at least when the Human Rights Campaign was fighting for equality and equality in marriage, and I remember the T being left off. Mm-hmm. And I remember the Human Rights Campaign saying, well, that's okay. And then there was a majority of us like, no, we are together. We are a community. What are you talking about leaving the T off? You can't leave the T off. It's LGBT. And that was before the Q and the plus, right?
Right.
And it was like, well, we take these wins when we can get them. Mm-hmm. And all we can get is LGB, then that's what we'll take. We'll take it. And I think we've forgotten about the T, honestly. I mean, I was reminded of that a little bit this morning. When I read this article, I had the sadness because I remembered that we said we'd get back to you.
Right.
And here we are, and this article is suggesting that we just kind of want to be LGB. And that's it. And so tell me more about what your thoughts are on that, Max.
Well, I mean, it's disheartening in a way because I do want to be a part of my community. I mean, I definitely see myself as a trans man, as a part of the queer community, which, from what I know, is the LGBTQ community. So it is definitely hard to see people who I thought were fighting with me to just now kind of voice how they're not really sure that they want me in their community anymore. And so now I think, where do I go? Because the straight people don't really want me. So if I can't belong with other queer people, then, trans people are kind of out on their own. So that's scary. That's a scary thought.
Well, let me just say, as a gay man, I want you, and I want you part of our alphabet of letters. And I'm not in tandem with these people who are saying otherwise. And I also find it interesting that this article appeared in a conservative paper. I mean, yeah. The last thing we need is to be further divided.
I agree.
We're already a minority. You guys are what?
We're 1% of the population.
1%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 1%. What a stir you have caused.
I know, right? We're such a problem.
And I think we're 10% or less, and it's been fascinating what a stir we caused. Mm-hmm. As I reflect back on the days on how we used to swing elections, and arguably, the trans issue, they, them, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment, but swayed this election a little bit because people are really afraid because they don't understand. And I realized I don't think I had a deeper understanding until we were talking earlier today, and we kind of said, okay, let's stop talking so we can have this discussion together. I'll say this as a gay man, I have really put my whole heart and soul into thinking about what it means to be trans. And I really had to sit with it, really had to process it, and to get to this place of deep understanding and empathy for what it must be like, and have an understanding of that it's gender dysphoria. What is gender dysphoria?
I mean, the best way I can describe it is a misalignment with my soul and then my body. So, I mean, or my insides and my outsides, if you will. So there's a disconnect there, and that's something that can be, in my mind, corrected by medical intervention, or maybe just physical intervention. I mean, I've been working out for a long time. That kind of helps me realign with who I feel like I am on the inside. Dysphoria is just a symptom of being transgender. It's not the crux of being transgender, if that makes sense.
It kind of makes sense. We were talking a little bit about it being a mental condition. Mm-hmm. And then I was reminded of how they said that we gay people had a mental condition. that we had mental illness, and that's why we thought we were gay. And that now it's interesting because that's what they're saying about trans people, is they think that they have a mental illness. And then I looked it up, and it was like we weren't considered sane until 1973.
That's right.
And now here you guys are having a mental illness too. It's interesting. Who says we're mentally ill? Interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think gender dysphoria causes distress, so I'm sure that's why it's classified as a mental disorder, but transgenderism in itself is not a mental disorder. So, I mean...
What's the distinction, Max?
I would say the distinction is, I mean, you have distress because you're misaligned with your body, right? But you're not mentally ill, which causes you to be misaligned with your body. So the way that I was just born right mind, wrong body is how I describe it. So, I mean, my inner self has always been masculine. I've always been a man. I mean, for a long time I was a boy. But
you're a grown-ass man.
Yeah, I'm a grown-ass man now. But growing up, I was a boy. I thought like a boy. I felt like a boy. And my body was the only thing that was inconsistent there. So that's where the dysphoria comes in, is that I was then made aware that, hey, there's a disconnect here, right? It's not that I was born and then I developed a mental illness that made me transgender, if that makes sense.
Can you say that again?
That I was born, but I wasn't born with a mental disorder that made me, it didn't turn me transgender, right? I was just born misaligned. And so that causes distress, which can then be helped by medication or by any other means of intervention. So,
I think the disconnect too around, because you've touched on a couple topics. We were talking about queer and how that's different, and how they were talking about, if I wanted to wear like this article suggests that this guy went to Columbia University and he was doing queer studies,
right.
And the queer studies suggested that if a little boy wanted to wear a dress, or if boys want to wear eyeliner, that's a woman, and that's what a woman wants to do, and therefore they are a woman. They're classified as a woman. And what they were suggesting was this was a regressive way of thinking. It's like going backwards. You talk about stereotypical, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, my goodness, if I had a nickel for every gay guy I know that said they wore their mother's shoes and a dress when they were young, I'd be a rich man. But they're not trans.
Right.
And so you and I were having a discussion around, there's a difference between gender dysphoria and then really just kind of wanting to change our circumstances, right?
Right.
And I think that's become more pervasive as of late. And I think that's what's most distressing to straight people who can't even, first of all, understand the disconnect or a medical condition that you just described, you beautifully described, which is, I feel like this on the inside, but my body just doesn't match it. And it's as natural and as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And then the dysphoria is what causes me stress around it. But then there's another side to that coin, and talk about that and what your thoughts are on that.
There are people who don't believe that you need gender dysphoria to be trans, and I'm not the trans police, so I can't really say definitively this is what makes you trans and this is what doesn't. But I think a lot of people struggle to find belonging and community. And I think a lot of people are kind of lost and alone and frightened. And I think it's really easy to find this group of people who all fit a certain criteria, and they all fight for each other, they all love each other, they're community. And maybe your life would be better off if you were just like them and you could kind of be accepted into their club, or however you want to say it. So, I mean, I don't think anyone comes at it from a malicious point of view, or they don't have malicious intent, right? I think people are just trying to find themselves and trying to find who they belong with. And I think sometimes that can get kind of muddled along the way. And so I think that's where a lot of these maybe other identities that aren't super concrete come from. But like I said,
But if I know you're not the queer police,
right,
or trans police, but if we're teaching, if queer agenda, ideology, which I don't really like the word ideology, but that guy went to Columbia University,
right,
and they were teaching that if you wanted to wear a dress, then you were a woman, and then that's if this is what the queer community wants to be taught, then isn't that further pushing that agenda to just change the way that you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that is very regressive because wearing a dress doesn't make you a girl. And I thought we'd already established that because there are drag queens who identify as men and dress as women. And so, I mean, I don't think wearing girl clothes as a little boy makes you a trans woman. I think we've kind of dumbed down our definitions for things maybe because, I mean, someone can be more feminine and still be a man, right?
Right, absolutely.
So I don't think what you wear makes you transgender, and I don't think if you're a boy and you like the color pink, I don't think that makes you a girl on the inside. So I think gender identity and gender expression are two separate things.
But that further complicates the issue around just gender expression in general and pronouns and how confusing that's all become, even for this gay guy who, I took a workshop in Vermont and we had to go around and say our name and then say our pronouns. And when it got to me, I said, "Hi, my name is Sean McGuire Meeks, and my pronouns are she, her." And everyone's mouth just dropped and eyes got big. And then I said, he, him, they, them. Like literally, if you want to talk to me, just talk to me in love. That's really where I want. It doesn't matter. I mean, often my community says, "Hey girl, how you doing?"
Yeah.
You just met some friends of mine a minute ago and we were girling and this and that. And it's all love. I mean, it's all love. And, I think intention and motive is lost often these days. But also, I was also reminded of a story where there was a girl who was born a girl presenting as female. So stay with me, everyone. I'm going to tell this story because the story's a bit confusing. He presented as a woman in that he had long hair, he had breasts, he had a vagina, walked in dresses, walked the earth in that way, but demanded that people use he, him pronouns. And because saying on the inside, I may look like this and this is the way that I want to express myself in my hair and the way I wear, but this is what I want you to call me. And that's confusing.
Right.
That's confusing. What do you think about those sorts of things? And
I mean, I think everyone's allowed to dress the way they want, right? But I think at the end of the day, we need to have some kind of order to things. I mean, we're a dignified species. We're very intelligent creatures. So I think we don't need to... I think a lot of people want to just expand and expand and expand, and eventually we lose what we were even trying to expand in the first place, if that makes sense.
absolutely does.
So, I mean, for me personally, I don't think it makes sense for someone to claim to feel a misalignment with their body, right, in the way that I do, and to claim to be transgender, like a trans man in this instance, and then to not act like that's true and to not present that as if that were true. So that's confusing even for me, and I am trans, right? I mean, so Yeah, I mean, I think people don't take it as seriously as it is, maybe. Because for me, being transgender alters my entire life. You know, I've made sacrifices for it, and I have to fight for it. And I don't get to just wear whatever I want and demand people to respect me for my certain pronouns that I may use.
You have made a lot of sacrifices, and I really admire you for. I mean, it's not even an admiration, because when the spirit of you is saying that this is who I am,
Right.
then you have to honor that. I mean, that's period, end of story. And it's the other people in our lives that can't seem to wrap their mind around it for religious reasons or otherwise. You know, my mother disowned me when I was 19, when I was your age. And I never spoke to her again until the day she died 3 years ago. And it was because she said, as long as I choose this, then I can't be in relationship with you. And she really lost out, you know. Some of my family came around and some never did. And you, a similar story, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, my dad, he disowned me, not legally, but I mean, he stopped talking to me and stopped wanting to see me. And then, you know, my grandparents, they've kind of outcasted me from the family. So, yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of the same kind of dead ends with family members because of my identity. And it's not something that I'm willing to let go of or give up just to please other people or make them more comfortable. So, yeah.
Yep, and it's a great segue to the man that's in both of our lives, which is Jack Meeks, and you know, his love and acceptance for us, this Christian man who, you know, when I met him 17 years ago, 18 years ago now, and he, I just had this sense that he was my dad. I can't describe it. So it was like there's just this deep knowing that he was my dad, and I would go for walks with him in the morning, and I just admired him. It's like, wow, I mean, what a good, grounded Christian man, businessman who's honest and, you know, just really respects me and all of that. And I told his wife that I felt like he was my dad, and she's like, you should tell him. And I was terrified, because I was terrified of straight people because of all the wounds, particularly a Christian man.
Right.
And when I told him, he said, I've never had any children, and I would be honored if you were my dad, or my son, rather. And so we've built the most beautiful relationship over the years, and I've been privileged to have him in my life to heal the Christian wounds. Not completely, I have the scars and they're deep, but to heal these wounds that are there, and to also be an informant to him about our community and how we suffer from disconnection. And, you know, there is a disconnection that you spoke about earlier around being, you're just becoming trans simply to be connected with. And,
Right.
and he saw that and sees that. And you have a similar story about Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's actually my, like, third cousin twice removed or something crazy like that. And, you know, I grew up with him. We were distant. And recently we reconnected, and I asked him if he wanted to be my grandpa, because I've lost a family through divorce and through my identity and everything else. So, and he said, you know what, I would love it if you would just call me Gramps. And I said, you know what, I don't have one of those. So yeah, you're top of the list. You're my Gramps. So yeah, and he's been my Gramps ever since. So
Yeah, which hasn't been that long of time.
not too long, no.
I do a workshop here at the farm called The Magic of Listening, and my dad's really supportive of that, and just thought, because of your struggles that you're going through with your family and just in general. I mean, you're a fighter, Max. You're a fighter for our community, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm glad to have you part of our community to help, as you're helping people to understand what it really means to be trans and different. And I know sometimes you feel alone in that, And I know my dad and your Gramps now knows that you do too, and thought that it would be really good for you to come to the magic of listening. And that was in September, so it was only 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And, I just feel like, I feel like you're an awesome guy. I'm just so happy to know you and really to be part of my family, which is what a great queer story
I know, right?
of love and connection. My dad's mom loved him no matter what. I know your mom does too. And his mom really loved him no matter what. And he, even though he's 73 years old, he still talks about his mom, and he talks about her love. And I have coined this phrase that the ripples of love of his mother is, who he lost at your age, at 19, and how much that still impacts him today. But the ripples of his mother's love has impacted my life for 18 years and impacted yours. And he just says, I'm a Christian man and I love you. And how can I help? And how can I be there for you? And help me to understand. And isn't that really what we want, Max?
Yeah. Yeah, to understand and to be understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Gramps, as I call him, he's eager to learn, and he doesn't react with hate. If he's afraid of something, he'll... I think oftentimes he's gone to you for more knowledge because he understands that he's afraid of what he doesn't know. And so to combat that, he seeks knowledge, which I think is a very admirable trait about him. So, yeah, I mean, he's been a very bright influence in my life, and I'm very thankful that he's so loving. And like you said, his mother, he talks about her very, very fondly. And it's very sweet that she has kind of passed down her love from Jack to you and then to me. So it's like...
Yeah, and even his love for me allows me to love you. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's almost like I feel like you're a mini me of sorts sitting over there, and just to be able to receive that love from him at such a young age, to hopefully not have the wounds and suffering that I've had. And this has been a great conversation so far, but I feel like we got so in depth just in our, like before we got started, I feel like we kind of just baseline talked about what trans is about. And I want to dive deep into the deeper questions that I don't think people are talking about. So could you stick around for another maybe 40 minutes or so? We can talk and maybe do another episode and really dive deeper into genitals and things that people like are afraid to talk about. I want to go there. Will you be willing to go there with me?
Yes, I would love to.
Okay.
You've been listening to Conjuring the Human Spirit with Sean McGuire Meeks. To connect with Sean, learn more about working one-on-one, or to grab your spot for an upcoming workshop, visit McGuireLife.com or tap the link in this episode's description. Thank you for joining us, and remember, you're not alone.